Hi guys, welcome to Monitoring and Evaluation Made Simple. I'm your host, Coach Alexander. I'm very glad that you've joined me today. We're going to be looking at an introduction to the Monitoring and Evaluation Plan for beginners. I've been talking about the M&E Plan for many years now, but I don't know, people keep asking me about the M&E Plan. And until recently, I received a request from a number of people requesting that I do a series on the monitoring and evaluation plan. So I'm so happy to do it because it's one of the topics I hold dear. If you're here for the very first time, let me tell you a bit about myself. I'm Coach Alexander. I've been in this field for 10 years now, and I'm enjoying every bit about it because each and every day I learn new things, I interact with new people, and that's what keeps me going. In case you didn't know this, but recently there is this M&E software which I've been talking about. It's called the KPI Lens. I like it. Okay, so please, if you have time, you want to learn more about it, you can either write to me or go to the link in the description below to go to their website because this is a good M&E software. As you can see, the number is there. They have a WhatsApp line. Please get to know them and they're going to help you throughout the way in helping you build your M&E system. Another thing is my free ebooks. Please download these free ebooks. They're totally free. And the course I'm running on Udemy, How to Develop an M&E System. It's a very good course. It is very affordable. Okay, it's not like the coaching program, but this one is far much cheap and you learn a few things within a short period of time. But I would urge you to enroll in the coaching program, which will obviously be open in somewhere July. So as usual, this is a long video. Please feel free to use the timestamps in the description below. So without wasting any more time, let's get started. Okay, so before I go any further, I want us to talk about planning. So planning is such an important thing in our lives because whatever we do, wherever we are constantly planning of what we want to do. So, in a nutshell, I like to define planning in terms of three important components. It's a process of setting our goals, okay? So, when you are sitting down, you always have goals that you want to achieve in life. So, goals are usually those long term, but you may also have short term or short to medium term goals. You may have those, but it's all about you sitting down to plan or set those goals. Then the next thing about planning is about you sitting down to work out a strategy of how you achieve those goals. And lastly, what resources will you need to achieve those goals? Okay, so there are those three important aspects of any plan that you do. It's first setting your goals, working out a strategy, and determining the resources that you need to achieve those goals. So what we do in life, it's very amazing because a lot of times in our everyday languages, everyday language will always be, if things don't work well in our life, we're going to condemn ourselves or condemn somebody else and tell them that it's simply because you failed to plan. That's what we usually do. We'll condemn ourselves, and it could be true. Maybe we didn't really sit down to calculate things very well. So in our lives, we plan for a number of things. We plan for retirement. We plan for our education, our vacation, even our marriage. We do plan for that. Even our businesses. So there are so many things that we plan for, and the list is endless. Okay. So whatever it is we're doing, it is really good to know that we spend most of the time setting these goals. And the interesting part is that very few times do we have, very few times we don't do things without planning. Okay, so it's quite beautiful that this is something you and me can connect with very well. So now let's talk about the project cycle. I hope I'm not boring you, but there are things you need to know before we jump into the M&E plan. So the projects that are implemented around the world start with a cycle. Okay, every project has a cycle. And as you can see in that image, the first stage is the initiating stage. Okay, then you go to the actual planning. All right, and during that stage of the planning, that's where now you have stakeholders sitting together to have a project developed. Okay, then you have the execution, then you have the monitoring, and then the closing of the project, and then the process is restarted. But let me tell you the truth. The planning of the project, as you can see, it starts way before even the what you see there. But when it comes to the monitoring and evaluation, it actually starts right at the planning stage. Okay, why do I say so? Because if you look at the project documents that are developed, in most cases, those indicators are supposed to have M&E personnel helping out develop those indicators, the key performance indicators. And actually, when those projects are being developed, in the work plans, they are actually stating that in this quarter or in the first or second quarter, we're going to do the monitoring. In the first or second quarter, or after 2 years, we're going to do a midterm evaluation. After 5 years, we'll do the end of project evaluation. All that is part of the planning. Now, I guess you know where I'm getting to, because evaluation is part of M&E, monitoring is part of M&E. So at this stage of the planning, that's where you find even the M&E plan has to be developed. Okay, so now let's answer this question. What is the M&E plan? All right, what is it? So the M&E plan, okay, so maybe I have to say it this way. I'm not even going to read what I typed, because it's pretty obvious what it is. It's really you determining what you want to achieve in the M&E, and how you are going to achieve it, and what resources you need to achieve your M&E activity goals. So monitoring and evaluation is not, I want you to underline this for those who are watching this and paying attention to me. It's not an academic exercise. You need to really look at it as something close to you, more than what you read and write in a test and try to get high marks. It's really something very important. And we have to, in order to have higher chances of success, you need to have these M&E plans developed, because it's going to help you do a very good job when it comes to monitoring and evaluating of your project. And then when you're doing so well with M&E, the performance of your projects will also be very good, such that when your project comes to a close, the next time you implement a similar project, you do it far much better than its predecessor. So in this 5-part series, okay, I'm going to be posting. I'm not sure how I'll do the sequence of the posting, but I'm thinking maybe I can be posting every 2 days certain things about the M&E plan, and this is what we're going to learn. Why is the M&E plan important? Okay, I've talked about it, I've touched a bit about it, but I want to explain it in such a way that I want to reach the hearts of even the project managers who are out there, the CEOs. I want them to understand why this is important. Another thing is, how is the M&E plan developed? Um, the M&E plan, if you go on the internet right now, you'll find some plans that have been done. But one thing I need to tell you is that every organization should have their unique way of developing these things because the context differs. So I want to run you through the process of how this is done. Then another issue is, what is the difference between an M&E plan and an M&E framework? So this is something we need to discuss because sometimes this is considered interchangeably, but they are different. Then how to implement the M&E plan? Very important. And why is this important? Because sometimes as organizations we are very good at developing policies, guidelines, but when it comes to the implementation, we fail tremendously. So I hope you're going to be joining me as I post this series. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me, and until we meet again, I've been your host, Coach Alexander, and see you on the other side. Bye. Hi guys, welcome to M&E Made Simple. I'm your host, Coach Alexander. I'm so glad that you've joined me today. We're going to be looking at, why is the monitoring and evaluation plan important? Why even bother about it? But before we go any further, for those of you who are here for the very first time, my name is Coach Alexander. I've been doing this for a very long time. I'm so happy about it. I'm so happy to be here. I have been a professional for 10 years in M&E, so whatever I'm talking about now is based from experience. You might have seen me talking a bit about this M&E software, which is on the scene rather. It is called the KPI Lens, and I'm happy to say that it is one of the, I think for me, I find it to be a very good M&E software, especially for those who really want to get started out with this kind of database and software for their organization. So please, if you want to learn more about it, the link is in the description below, and also the phone number in case you want to get in touch with the experts. For those of you who haven't done so, please download this M&E guide, and please don't forget to enroll for the how to set up a monitoring and evaluation system step-by-step course, which is on Udemy. So as usual, this video is long, and please be sure to use the timestamps in the description below. So without wasting any more time, let's get started with it, shall we? Okay, so why is the M&E plan important? Why is it important? Okay, so there are 5 reasons why M&E plans are important, and I would have done this slide by slide, but there is no need because I'm pretty sure you're going to appreciate even as I walk you through the 5 reasons. So the first 3 reasons are: 1, it reduces on wastage and enhances efficiency. So let me talk about this with you guys, because usually there's a bit of a confusion between efficiency and effectiveness. But ultimately, when we talk about efficiency and effectiveness, they go hand in hand. But the key in every manager's mind is, how do we ensure that what we are doing is cost effective, is not expensive? Because even in the donor's eyes, they don't like to spend, believe you me. But if they're spending, the results that you achieve should be way over the top. So what the M&E plan does, it ensures that whatever we are doing in terms of activities, we are doing them effectively. And also, in that case, because you have worked out a plan, you have isolated what you are going to be doing, you've even attached a cost to it, it is very good that way, because then you're not really going to misuse your limited resources, but you're going to make sure that whatever you're doing is achieving results. The second reason is it is an indication of management's commitment to see M&D being implemented. One of the things I tell my students, especially the ones I'm doing in the coaching program. By the way, in case you don't know, enrollments in the coaching program will be starting soon in June. So please, if you haven't done so, send an application to me and we process it and you get enrolled. Okay, so now the thing is that management are the key players when it comes to the sustainability of any M&D system. Why do I say so? Imagine as an M&D professional, you want to do a certain activity. Let's say you want to do a midterm evaluation. Now, I know that some organizations don't see it necessary for whatever reason, but you see it necessary because you know that as an M&D professional, this is an important component. So normally what happens is if you have a plan that has been approved and endorsed by management, you won't have any problems implementing your monitoring and evaluation activities because management themselves approved those activities you put on pen and paper. So when you have this plan, believe you me, you have the activities. But if you don't have a plan in place in your organization, you find that you have all these challenges trying to get approval to do certain activities. Sometimes you can't even do an M&D training because it's not, I mean, there is no commitment from the very beginning. But if you have an M&D plan, and you put M&D trainings as part of your plan and management approves that, then I mean you won't be opposed. So that's why you need an M&D plan. Another issue is it fosters um, positive culture. So another issue that is important to the sustainability of a monitoring and evaluation system is the culture. And when I say culture, I'm talking about the way we behave. Okay, so how do we behave? How do we actually promote the implementation of this M&D in our organization? The M&D plan will explain what needs to be done by whom, when, why, and things like that. And everybody will be given that copy of the document. However, without the plan, people may not have adequate guidance. And what happens if there isn't guidance? The culture may be bad. You find someone is issuing or delivering reports late, M&D reports late, or perhaps they are not really taking the analysis of the data they collect seriously. There are a lot of errors in the reports they submit. So that is a bad culture. In a good M&D culture, you need people who are vibrant, who are energetic, analytical, positive about all these activities that are done to promote M&E. The fourth reason is the donors. So I know that I know this can be also a bit of a debate because on one end, we are trying to please the donors, but on the other end, we are also trying to take ownership. So I understand, but here is the truth. Normally, if you see these donors around us, even around the world, you find that they are much more moved to support you if you have a strong M&D system in place. That includes having those plans, the M&D plan, because it will show that you are committed and that is what they want to see. They want to see your organization showing accountability towards what they do when they do these activities. But it's also crucial that they really want to ensure that even when you are reporting to them, if you have a very good M&D system, it will show. And usually these good M&D systems, they have M&D plans, and the data and information that is being fed out of these systems, even if you authenticated them, they are authentic. And that's what will lead to more support from the donors. So I think, no, anyway, not I think, actually, from my experience, you really need to have a plan. Donors love it, and stakeholders alike. And lastly, but not the least, it's the budget. You know, if you've noticed, I talk about this a lot. The budget, you know, it's really important because sometimes, and I know I'm not the only one who faced this problem, but some of you M&D professionals out there might be facing this problem. You go to seek approval from management to have an activity approved or cleared so that you can undertake it. Let's say an M&D training, capacity building training, that's very important. So now the excuse they'll give to you is that there is no money. And why are you even conducting this? And it's one thing leading to the next. Okay, so the issue is that you need to have this budget. So now the M&D budget, usually, if you have these projects running, usually what you see is that they'll have a project document, and each thematic area will have a budget. Will even explain, no, you do monitoring visits, and then there's a baseline, midterm, and things like that. But it's not sufficient because the M&D part shouldn't really be integrated into that budget, in my viewpoint. Okay, although it's okay, but you see, challenges come in when you now try to get approval. They won't understand why this is necessary. And that is why when you have an M&D plan, all of those things are clarified, including the budget, including the reason for having certain activities. Because I'm touching on trainings today, but there are other things which I've heard some of my fellow colleagues who are in this profession talk about some of the challenges. I mean, let's talk about the midterm evaluation. That is very important. Doing a data quality audit is extremely important in your projects, and those things need to be budgeted for. Okay, so guys, those were my 5 reasons. And in the next video, we will talk about how the M&D plan is developed. I'm going to give you a template that I've used. I am sure some of my students know about this template, but for those of you who are not enrolled in the one-on-one coaching program, you'll get this template and you're going to see how beneficial it is. But I have a special announcement to make, and you must have heard me talk about this in the presentation. In June, 14th June, we are starting our new enrollments in the one-on-one coaching program. I have to say, guys, I'm very happy and humbled with the tremendous support I receive from people from all over the world. And this program is going to grow. And I can guarantee you that when it grows, it's going to be something totally different. It's going to be something that when you leave after getting the training, you'll feel really confident about yourself. So if you are thinking of enrolling, please don't give up. Enroll in this program and get the full maximum benefit. Okay, so that's all I had for you today. I've been your host, Coach Alexander, and see you on the other side. Bye. Hi, guys. A very warm welcome to this channel, M&D Made Simple. I'm your host, Coach Alexander. We're going to be looking on how to develop the M&D plan. This is part 3 of a 5-part series. Okay. For those of you who've been following this channel closely, 2 weeks ago I launched a short series on how to develop an M&D plan. And this was done because apparently there has been a lot of high demand, people writing to me, and I mean, why should I hold back? So this is what we'll be discussing today. So this is part three. Please, if you haven't done so, watch the other two videos. For those of you who are new to this channel, my name is Coach Alexander. I've been doing this for 10 years now, and I've enjoyed every moment of it, guys. And I have everything at the back of my head. So you can ask me any question you want to do with M&E, and I'll answer it positively. So another thing is we've been promoting masks and t-shirts in relation to monitoring and evaluation. Please do well to support this channel by buying these t-shirts. The link is in the description. There's also these free ebooks. I would have wanted to launch the M&D Beginners Guide for 2021. I hope we can do it this year, but if it doesn't happen, please be sure to look out for 2022 M&D Guide. But just enjoy the present one, which is the 2020 guide. Of course, there's how to set up an M&D system step by step. You can enroll in this course on Udemy. As usual, this video is very long, okay, as all my videos are, and I usually keep them long because I want to explain quite a number of things. So please use the timestamps in the description below so that you can navigate your way through the video within the shortest period of time. So you don't essentially need to watch everything if you don't want to. Just go to the parts which are important to you. Okay, so now let's get into the nitty-gritties. How is an M&D plan developed? So the thing is this. Every project has a cycle. You've got the planning, you've got the implementation, you've got the monitoring, then correction and feedback. So that's the plan, that's the project cycle. So the planning, the M&D plan is developed at the planning stage. And it is at this stage when people are sitting down to decide what project are they going to come up with, and how are they going to implement it, what resources are needed, what manpower is needed. So among the things that they need to discuss is the issue of monitoring and evaluation. So now, this is one of the things I've noticed. People tend to just ignore the need to develop an M&D plan at planning stage because they feel that it has been actually addressed in the project document. But I have to tell you that that isn't adequate enough. You need to have a separate plan specific to M&D. So the first stage is doing a desk review. So now I have to mention that when we say desk review, you're simply reading the logical framework, results framework, conceptual framework, and then you're also reviewing all the performance indicators that are present. Okay, so you really look at all those indicators, and then you get to get a feel of what exactly is happening, what is the project doing, what is it trying to achieve. Then the second thing is that you need to develop the monitoring and evaluation plan document. Okay, so I've just fast tracked this because I know that there are other stages in between, but I've made life a bit easier by fast tracking this. You go straight into the development of the M&D plan document. So this is in a situation where in your organization, the project plan is already there. So you as an M&D officer, there is no harm in coming up with the plan yourself, okay? You can download the template for the monitoring and evaluation plan in the description below, but I want us to talk about this plan right now. I'll run you through how the template looks like, okay? So just give me a few seconds. Voila. So this is the M&E plan template. Like I said, you can download this template in the description below. So it's a very beautiful template, easy to use, easy to understand, okay? So for those of you who are doing this for the first time, you don't need to worry because this plan is user friendly for different kinds of organizations. But I have to tell you that it's pretty basic. What I'm showing you is pretty basic. But if you are doing something for a big organization or a government ministry, you need to be much more elaborate. So the table of contents is that it's like this. First, you have the executive summary, you have the acronyms, the glossary of terms, then the introduction. Okay, so the M&E plan should really introduce what this plan is for. What is its use? Who is it for? Why did you embark on this journey of developing an M&E plan? Now, there are different types of reasons, there are different types of plans actually that are developed. You have a plan specific to a project, or you have a M&E plan for the entire organization. So, depending on what you think is best, you can have the plan for an individual project or decide to have a plan for the organization. So, essentially, if you have a plan for the organization, you do your desk review against the strategic plan. Okay, so as you can see, you give a bit of a background, purpose of the plan, and overview of the project. Okay, so this can be project stroke strategic plan. Then the other thing is that you need to have the monitoring and evaluation framework. So let's go straight to the M&E framework. I get a lot of questions from different people asking me, Coach, what is this M&E framework that you keep talking about? So this is the M&E framework. So it's actually people say framework or framework matrix. It's pretty much the same. Essentially, what you are looking at is a template again for the M&E framework, which I think everyone should adopt when it comes to this stage. So what you're doing here is you're trying to demonstrate that for each indicator, remember there are different levels of indicators. You've got the impact, which is the goal, the outcomes and outputs. For each of these indicators, there should be a definition, there should be a baseline, there should be a target, there should be where you'll be actually getting this data from, how often you'll be collecting this data, and who is responsible and how is it reported. So these things are in the framework, and the framework just summarizes how you're going to be actually dealing with these different indicators. And that's what I love about it because it's so easy to use, it's so easy to populate, and it doesn't get any better than that. So, the other thing is the data flow. I don't know how you understand this, most of you, but I like to think of data flow the way you get your data. Where does it move? From what point does it get in the hands of somebody? And who, when that somebody gets it, where does he take it to? Where is it stored? How is it analyzed? When is it analyzed? Who analyzes it? Who reports on it? So as you can see, it all begins from the source. You explain how does data come all the way from the bottom to the top. Okay, in this case, if you are dealing with a organization that sends field officers to the communities to collect this data, how does it move? How does it travel? Who handles it? Who verifies it? Who validates it? Where is it stored? Things like that. So the data flow diagram is important for every M&D professional out there. Another aspect you need to mention in the plan is the evaluation. So there's a section for the evaluation. So if I ask you this question, what exactly is an evaluation? And I think most of you, if I asked 10 people, 9 out of 10 will say, okay, an evaluation is this and that. And I think I would agree with. But the thing is that we tend to define evaluation as the end of project evaluation. Okay, so that's what I want to stress to you guys. We are not just talking about the end of program evaluation or end of project evaluation. We are also talking about the midterm evaluation. We are also talking about the baseline. So this should be included in this section. Okay, explain the process. How do you actually how will this project actually be conducting these activities and who will coordinate these efforts? Okay. Other organizations, before they hire an external consultant, they'll first do an internal evaluation. So this is where this section elaborates more on that. In your appendices, I like to include what are known as indicator reference sheets. If you don't know what these are, please go on the internet, try to do a bit of reading just to fully understand what these indicator reference sheets are. They are very important for every M&D system out there. Another thing is, which I think is the core business of this plan, is to outline the resource requirement, okay? The budget, the money, the moolah, okay? Some people call it moolah, but I call it money, I call it cash. Different terms out there, but basically, you know what I'm talking about. What is it we need to fulfill our activities? And this is where we need to come out clear and honest when we are writing things down. We tell people exactly what is it we need. And the people themselves, if they tell us, if management says it's too expensive, we can bring it down, but you also have to explain what could be the likely implications of trying to decrease spending on a critical pathway. Okay, so this was just a nutshell. Like I said, the template is in the description. You can do well to download this template. It's really easy to use. So without wasting much time, let's go straight back to the PowerPoint presentation. We are almost done. Okay, so you've written your M&E plan document using the template that I shared with you. But I have to mention that that is a pretty basic template, okay, believe you me, because for bigger interventions, you might need something much more elaborate, okay. So after you've drafted the M&D plan, the next stage is to invite all the stakeholders for a meeting where they can review this M&D plan. Or maybe you don't, maybe at this stage, maybe you don't need to really invite them. Just share the draft document to different stakeholders. And the stakeholders in this case could be your sponsors. Stakeholders could also be organizations that you work with, even people inside the organization. Share the document so that they can give you their input. There are certain things I've noticed, depending on the culture of an organization. When you come up with a plan like this, some may be very interested to read through it, and they'll give you a lot of constructive feedback. But others may not be that keenly interested to review it, and they may not even have the time to really make sense out of it. So you might find that people won't have comments, okay? But I can tell you, when it comes to this stage of having the M&D plan validated at a workshop where you invite these same stakeholders to validate the plan, I'm telling you, that is when now you are going to see people commenting, because some of these people didn't even bother reading it, but now at the meeting, at the workshop, that's actually now when they are awake. That is when now they want to give you comments. But at that stage, really, it's a little too late. Okay. So usually, anyway, in other words, what I'm trying to say is that it might actually be good to have a workshop for reviewing the document, and then having another workshop where you validate. Okay, and validation means have all the comments been taken care of? Is it indeed addressing the needs? Okay, and I'm telling you, like I've always mentioned, when you have this M&D plan approved, I'm telling you, life becomes so easy because now you have that green light, that support to actually implement M&E effectively without any interference. Because you don't want a situation where you want to do a baseline survey and then you're busy being watered down. People are shooting your ideas down. It shouldn't be like that. But when you have everyone's approval, the right people's approval, I'm telling you, you'll be you'll be happy. Okay, so that's all I had today, guys. I really hope you enjoyed this presentation of how to develop the M&D plan. So we're going to, in the next video, we're going to talk about how this M&D plan is actually implemented. Okay, I think that's what I remember. Okay, so we're going to talk about that. So please keep on watching and keep on writing to me in case of any questions. At this point in time, I want to say thank you. I've been your host, Coach Alexander, and see you on the other side. Hello, guys. Welcome to M&D Made Simple. I'm your host, Coach Alexander. I'm so glad that you've joined me today. We're going to be continuing on our series how to develop a monitoring and evaluation plan. So if you haven't been watching the videos are in the link below. Okay, I've put a link that gives you all the past 3 videos that I've done. This is the 4th video in the series. So today we're going to be looking at what is the difference between an M&E plan and M&E framework. Okay, but for those of you who haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so because I'll be posting updates on a regular basis. And if you don't know who I am, I'm simply Coach Alexander. And I've been doing this for 10 years now, and I've enjoyed every little bit of this M&E. Now, there's something I need to talk about, and this is one of the best things that has ever happened in M&E Made Simple. It's the coaching program, the 6-month coaching program. In June, we've already started enrolling. Okay, people have been writing to us, people are enrolling. So we want to encourage you also to enroll because this is a very good program. You get one-on-one coaching via Skype. We give you materials, you do a test, you do exams, and at the end, you also get a certificate. So I'm so happy that people have been responding very well, and I really want you to enroll in this. So please write to me if you can. Of course, we have these freebies, the free ebooks. The link is in the description. How to set up a monitoring and evaluation system step by step. This is a course running on Udemy. It's a very good course. Please enroll in this course. And as usual, this video is quite long, okay, because I like to be thorough. But in case you don't want to listen to everything, use the timestamps in the description below, okay? So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into business. Okay, so I like to explain what an M&E plan is by also differentiating it from an M&E framework. And the reason is that people tend to confuse the two. And I know this and I've seen this many times because if you look at a plan, it details certain aspects that are also similar to the framework, but they are different because by definition, if you remember the videos that I did, I explained what planning is. Okay, so now the plan, let me just go through this again. The M&E plan explains what is to be measured, how are we going to measure them, who is going to measure them, and what resources are we going to be using. Sorry about that. So now, the thing here is, in terms of what is measured, it lists all the indicators. And the indicators are further amplified by means of what we call indicator reference sheets. For those of you who don't know what indicator reference sheets, these are simply documents that explain in detail what each indicator is on the logical framework. So they go into the details by defining them, explaining how they are calculated, and so on and so forth. Now, the key about the plan, the key difference between a plan, M&E plan and M&E framework is that it gives you details about the time, manpower, and money required. Okay, this is very important. I've explained about this oftentimes to many of my listeners. I've had people write to me and question me, why do we need to include the budget in the M&E plan when it's already appearing in the project budget? I have to tell you guys, the truth of the matter is that if you don't do what I'm saying, it can create serious problems. I've seen this many times. The the funny thing about the project budget is that it doesn't really disaggregate what is for M&E and what is for project activities. It's like it harmonizes everything. So this can bring a bit of confusion in implementation because you discover that the people that are supposed to be doing M&E activities should be M&E personnel. But because the budget is not clear on those things, the project staff, the other project staff will think that it is something they need to be doing. And that can create a bit of confusion. Okay. But that is just among one of the reasons. But there are many other reasons why you need to separate the two. So the M&E framework is simply a matrix. All right. Oh, by the way, before I go any further, for the M&D plan, in my previous video, I had explained what template you can use for writing the plan. Okay, so now let's go to the framework. The framework is simply a matrix. And for those of you who've not seen this before, this is just one example, okay, of how a framework looks like. So you've got the indicators, you've got the definitions, baseline, target, data source, frequency, and so on and so forth. These are the sections that really make you know that this is a framework. And please also don't confuse this with a log frame because they are also different, though similar. You know, one thing you have to realize is that things are pretty much similar in the in M&E, you know, when you look at these various templates. But you have to be able to separate the two because they means different things. So I've given an example. This was an example that I gave in one of my previous videos. You have a project that is designed on poverty reduction. Okay. So as you can see, the indicators have been populated. This column has been populated. Then you have the definitions, baseline targets, data source, frequency, responsible personnel, and reporting. So this is pretty much what it is. I can tell you that I have seen a framework that is really bulky. It doesn't have a matrix. It doesn't only have a matrix, but it has a lot of narratives. That is also fine. But the only difference that you need to realize is that when it comes to an M&D plan, it's really going to tell you how you should be scheduling these activities and what monetary value you should attach to them. I want you to take note of this, dear friends, that the M&D plan is a document, and because of that, it will contain the framework inside. Okay, so that is also another way to differentiate the two. The framework is a sub-component of the plan. Of course, you can have, I've seen situations where the framework is actually in the project document. That's fine. But if you have a plan, if your organization develops a plan, it should have a framework inside. because what your plan is explaining is also linked to the framework. So I want to thank you so much for giving me this time. Please don't forget to enroll in the one-on-one coaching program this month. Until we meet again, I've been your host, Coach Alexander. See you on the other side. Bye. Hi guys, welcome to M&E Made Simple. I'm your host, Coach Alexander. I'm so glad that you've joined me today. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do well to subscribe to this channel because on a regular basis, I post updates in relation to M&E. Today, we're going to be looking at how is the M&E plan implemented. This is the last video in the series of videos I had posted on M&E planning. Okay, but before I go any further, if you are here for the very first time, my name is Coach Alexander. I've been doing this for 10 years now. I enjoy every bit of it. I want you to be part of this channel, so please subscribe because all the time I'm posting at least every week. There's something I want to talk about though. It's the 6-month coaching program, and a lot of you have been writing to me asking about this program. I've decided in a few days' time to talk about what this coaching program is. So we're going to spend maybe 10 to 20 minutes. I'm going to explain to you what this coaching program is. A lot of people have benefited from this program. It talks about M&E. We do SPSS. We do advanced statistics. So believe you me, if you enroll in this, it will be the best thing you've ever done in your life in terms of M&E. I have these free ebooks. The link is in the description. If the link is not in the description, you can always write to me. I can send you the link. There is this Udemy course. Please enroll in it. It's one of my best courses. And of course, this is a long video, but of course, again, we have the timestamps. So make good use of the timestamps because the timestamps are meant to make your life easier. Let's get started, shall we? Okay, so now the implementation of the M&E plan is where the real things happen, the activities happen. You've documented what you want to see in your M&E system, okay? Of course, it comes out in a plan, but the M&E system is also something slightly different. But in the M&E plan, as you can see there's the contents, which gives you everything, all the components of the plan, okay, that you'd want to implement. So you give a bit of a background and you give the purpose, the overview of the project, and the M&E framework, data flow evaluation, and so on and so forth. So now, when you are implementing this plan, the key is it all begins from you understanding what is in the framework. Okay, that's the easiest way to begin. You simply need to understand what does the framework say, what does the framework metric say. So the reason why you do that is in the framework it gives you all the indicators, all right, and then it also gives you a brief definition, and also one of the most important things about it, it also showcases who is responsible and how often do we collect this data, because I have to tell you this, that everything we do is dependent on the data, and it ends there. That's the starting point and that's the ending point. It's the data. We need this data in order to do to make our decisions, in order to measure whether we are really achieving things or not. So after you've reviewed all this, the next stage is the development of data collection tools. All right. So the tools are the actual instruments you use to collect this data. Remember, the data is dependent on these indicators. This is just an example of a poverty reduction project. So there are these indicators. So you need to understand what you're collecting, how you're going to collect it, and when. This matrix gives you that information. So after you've developed the tools, okay, maybe I just have to say the process of actually developing these tools is listed there. So the first thing is you need to have to review the indicators which I've showed you in the matrix. Then the second thing is for you to ask yourself, for each of these indicators, what data collection method will be used. There are different types of methods that are used to collect data. You've got focus group discussion, you've got observations, you've got survey, and so on. So you need to ask yourself that question. And then you need to also ask yourself, this kind of indicator, what type of indicator is it? Is it a qualitative indicator? Is it a quantitative indicator? The reason why you ask this question is because the quantitative indicators will tell you that, okay, since this is quantitative, you obviously align it to a method which is more quantitative focused, such as surveys, okay? But if it's a qualitative indicator, usually qualitative indicators require you to measure issues of attitudes, perceptions. So when you're doing that, the methods you use are more aligned to issues to do with focus group discussions. And the reason being is that when you ask questions, they are usually open-ended questions you're asking. And these are the answers that they'll give you will be also open-ended. So that's why you need to ask these questions. So when you determine the type of indicator, it will help you establish what kind of method you use to collect, and it may help you also have an idea of what you are going to be facing in future. So based on the preceding questions, you now develop the tools, all right, the data collection tools. So if you are going to use a survey to collect this data, obviously the tools you use are the questionnaires. But if you're going to be doing focus group discussions, the tools that you develop will be obviously an interviews guide or a focus group discussion guide. All right. So you find out that these tools are pretty much dependent on the questions you ask here. So after you've developed the tools, you test the tools. So you as the developer has to test the tool to see whether it is answering all the questions that are up there. Then after you test the tools, if the tools have passed your test, you have to train your staff. So training the staff will require you that you bring your staff together, you orient them on the use of the tool, you give them the opportunity to ask questions. You also correct where need be. You can do you can do some corrections if some stuff bring to your attention what is lacking in the tool. So you can do corrections there and then. Then the most important step is the pilot testing of the tools. So you use these trained staff, you ask them to actually go in the field to interview just a small number of individuals. And then based on the data, you can be able to establish whether the tool fulfilled its intended purpose or not. If it didn't fulfill its intended purpose, then you need to make corrections. And then after you've made the corrections and after you've improved the tool, you actually launch the tool. There's something I need to tell you about the implementation of the M&E plan. It's really important that you have indicator reference sheets. Indicator reference sheets show you or explain to you what each of the indicators actually mean. Okay, so I've given an example of an indicator reference sheet, but it hasn't been populated. This is more like a template. There are templates all over the internet that explain the indicator reference sheets. So once you have these indicator reference sheets, it is also part of the implementation because these sheets will help you make sure that whatever you're collecting is of high quality. Okay, you're collecting high quality data because high quality data is what we really need when it comes to effective decision making. So the implementation cycle in the monitoring and evaluation, when you're implementing the plan, you're basically monitoring and evaluating. That is the implementation cycle. So the cycle begins at this stage, the baseline. So the baseline, when your project has been approved, the first step you do is a baseline because you want to establish what is the current situation. Others may argue that there may not be any need to do a baseline because all the indicators are at zero. Okay, but it's not always the case. It really depends on the indicator that you're using. Usually indicators that have to do with number of trainings conducted, yes, those are zero value indicators at the start of the project. But there are certain indicators that may not be at zero value, such as attitudes, perceptions of people at that time, or income levels of people at a certain time, poverty levels at a certain time. It may not be at zero. Okay, so that's why you need to do a baseline. So the baseline is usually conducted by an independent person, but there is really no harm in doing it yourself as an organization because the issue of biasness doesn't come into play at that point. So after you've done the baseline, you undertake monitoring activities. This is where now your organization is going to be monitoring the activities. How are they doing in terms of their targets? Are they achieving their targets? Usually, the monitoring is done at the lower level indicators. We're talking of the activities, the inputs, and the outputs. But when we come to the midterm evaluation, this is an evaluation that is done midway through the project implementation timeframe. So the midterm evaluation is done usually to measure the the results achieved at the higher level indicators such as the outcome and impact. This evaluation, as because it's done midway, it gives you a head start kind of in knowing exactly how you are doing so far, so that by the time you do the end of project evaluation, you would have already corrected the challenges that were raised at the midterm evaluation stage. So this is very important, especially for long-term projects that are maybe 4 or 5 years. You can do it for a 3-year project, but I think if your project is 5 years, you need a midterm evaluation. After the midterm evaluation is done, you do the monitoring business as usual until you reach the end of project evaluation. The end of project evaluation is similar to the midterm evaluation. Same methodology, probably the same consultants that you used to do it. So now, if you've noticed, the end of project evaluation and baseline, they are together, all right? What some organizations have done is that they'll use the end of project evaluation as a baseline for the next implementation phase of the project. So you've got projects that have different a number of phases. So they'll use the end of evaluation for the previous phase as a baseline for the new phase, and then business as usual. Okay, so that is in a nutshell how you implement monitoring and evaluation, how you implement the plan. So if you have any questions, you can write to me. I can answer some of your questions, or most of the time I answer 100% of the questions. But please write to me. If I don't see your email, please don't get discouraged. Sometimes I get a lot of emails, but I really want to help you progress in the implementation of M&E in your organization. Until we meet again, I've been your host, Coach Alexander, and see you on the other side. Bye.